So the next phase, what are we looking at? The process of from going from the 7 stages, or roughly 7 stages. You'll see that broken down roughly into what's called your sales cycle. That person has they rejected you. What do you do next? What exactly is happening after rejection? What exactly do you do with that person? Because there's a property there, they haven't sold it. Uh, by all means, with many newer investors, something that they do that is just crushing to exactly what they need to do is they don't necessarily follow up at all. They don't have a process in place. They don't understand that sales cycle at all. That's a person who simply said no. I, kind of talked to them a couple times. They went cold. They didn't respond. They, stopped answering my calls. They, whatever the situation may have been. What are some of the things that you have, handled and dealing with some of the leads? I'm certain that you have, had people ghost you for whatever reasons. Go ahead and post those in the chat box and let me know what are some of the kind of the walls that sellers have put up with regards to your offers and your situation. But essentially, that is the sales cycle. And the sales cycle's length is essentially the period of time from initial contact with the lead to the point when that deal is actually closed. So you have to understand, when you say close, you mean they had either won or lost the property. So someone actually bought it or they didn't. That's the only time that sales cycle actually ends, is then that person has actually closed on that property. And that could mean the bank has took the property back. We've been in situations where someone, if you've ever been in a situation where a seller was just so stubborn, they were so stubborn that they literally got to a point where the bank simply foreclosed on the property. Let me know if you've ever gotten in that situation with a seller. Type yes in the comments if you've had a seller that you followed up with and you've provided a great offer to, and you've nurtured, and you felt as though you had a great rapport, and you felt as though this was a situation where they were going to move forward, and all of a sudden they get cold, and for whatever terms, that communication breaks down. They can don't necessarily follow up with you or answer your calls as quickly, or they whatever the reason is. Have you ever dealt with that type of individual that just got cold feet and essentially got to the point where the bank literally took their property? Because that's that can happen within the sales cycle, because from that point of contact, however you contacted them, up until that point of a contract, actually getting the property under contract and taking it forward to a close, there's a time period in that sales cycle. And it doesn't end until that property is disposed of, based on you targeting correctly, because you should be working with motivated sellers. Motivated sellers should be the only thing within your sales cycle. And that doesn't mean motivation could be many different things. We're not going to dive into exactly what motivation are, but certainly there's so many different ways that motivation plays a part in why a seller would want to sell. So certainly we can dive into that in another call. But sales benchmark research shows that average sales cycles length of B2B companies, and right now, same thing with I would consider, person to person, the sales cycle to be, very similar. And that's about 102 days, about 3 months. So what does that mean? That means an average person from actually contacting them to them making the decision could take anywhere from 30 to basically about 102 days, about 90 days. What are you going to do to stay in contact within that time period? How comfortable are you following up for 90 days? I mean, we have leads in our pipeline at this moment right now that we've been following up on for over 3 years consistently. Because again, when we say that deal is closed, that sales cycle ends, that's what we mean. The sales cycle does not end until that property actually is closed, when that deal is actually done. We know that that individual, based on our metrics of qualifying them, like we talked about initially, that individual needs to sell that property at some point. They are motivated to sell. They're not as motivated at this moment as they will be at some point in time. So typically you want to be there when that motivation is its highest level. So you have to understand your sales cycle. You have to understand exactly what process you have in place to stay in contact with those individuals, to be able to continue to move forward with a prospect to a contract, and thus a closing and a sale to be completed. Again, For those that are just joining us, my name is Kevin Davis, and you're joining us in our Deal Mastery Monday call. And we're talking about lead management, success, and follow-up, how to effectively manage your pipeline. Each and every Deal Mastery Monday, we do cover strategies, techniques, and processes to help investors achieve their goals. And you can head over to www.dealmastery.com for more information on our programs, our deals that we post, and many other things. So again, that sales cycle is something that's extremely important to managing your leads, to understanding when and where you can actually get paid. Because remember, within a sale, you don't actually, and especially in real estate, you don't actually get paid until it's something closes, until it sells. There's a saying in real estate, you make your money when you buy. Well, this is the front end of that buy, which means you have to get that property at at the right number in order for you to sell it at the right number, whether that's by wholesale, lease option strategy, retail sale, or whatever other strategy that you're deploying. You have to understand that your numbers have to be at a certain point within your sales cycle. It takes time to get them to that point. So again, we are understanding the process that it takes 7 steps. So you're going to go prospecting and qualifying, preparing and pre-approaching, approaching that individual, presentation of your offer, overcoming your objections, closing that sale, hopefully. But in most cases, about 95% of the time, you're going to be following up, and you have to understand your sales cycle. So what does that mean? You have to be able to effectively understand the time period between when a salesperson or a contact comes into your funnel, your initial contact, up until when it actually closes. And typically, that looks like about a 30-day period. So you want to make certain that you can effectively follow up.